Thank you all for joining us tonight. We're so happy to have you here at this event, supporting a great cause. My name is Rebecca. Sorry, I think I have feedback. My name is Rebecca Garcia. I'm a developer evangelist here at Squarespace. So we love to open up our space for community events like this to support the local tech community and also foster diversity and fixing the STEM pipeline. My work here at Squarespace includes, as a developer evangelist, which doesn't mean I'm super religious. It just means that I'm very passionate about sharing products and ideas and the things that are going on here at Squarespace. So a few of the things that I work on, which I guess I'll talk more about later, but what I wanted to share is that we are also, we've opened our internship program for applications. So we are hiring for college students for this coming summer for design and engineering. Our program is called Initial Commit. So if you go to initialcommit.squarespace.com, you can check out what positions are available, so across the board. And the fun thing about Initial Commit is that it's actually a beachside hack week. So if you get accepted as an intern, you get to spend the first week at a beachside retreat building projects and ideas and getting to know each other and mentors who work at Squarespace and who you'll be working with. So it's a really fun experience. So I hope you'll check it out. We also have a cute little video there too if you want to see what projects our interns worked on and interviews and things like that. So definitely talk to me if you have any questions about that. And again, thank you so much for being here. I think this is going to be a really wonderful event. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Victoria Lee. I'm the New York Program Manager for ChickTech. We are a nonprofit dedicated to expanding the number of women and girls in technology. I have a couple of volunteers in the front that you might have met on your way in. I have my day job and I do this on the side. So volunteer side, we definitely keep looking for people to help out, in or outside of work. So ChickTech, we have two programs. You're here today in the Careers program. Essentially, we create events of topics that people really care about, and we get us all together, build a community of inclusion, and generate ideas. So previous career-related events we've done is on imposter syndrome. We've done one on salary negotiations a couple weeks ago, and then also a documentary on Big Dream, which is a documentary that follows a path of 7 young women pursuing their path to STEM. And then our second program is our high school program, which is you're all here today to support that event. Essentially, we get 100 high school girls in New York who have never considered technology to come together and choose 6 different workshops ranging from 3D printing, robotics, mobile app development, website design, etc., and get them to go from not interested in tech to interested in tech as their career and study its path. I'll do a really quick story of events we did in Portland. A year ago, we had a girl who was doing robotics, and she was struggling in the beginning of the 2-day event. And it wasn't because she didn't know the technology or couldn't learn it, it's because she didn't have access to it. So growing up, her parents would drive her to the library, they want internet, or use it on their mobile. So after we paired up a mentor with her to work on one-on-one on the event, she got a lot more excited about technology, built an awesome robot, and ended up pursuing that as her study, and now she's going back to help volunteer for other high school girls. So this goes to show that anyone can learn it, and we want to get girls excited, and it's not this scary big thing that no one can pursue, or only other people can pursue it, that anyone can achieve that. So with that, our upcoming event for our high schools, where we get 100 high school girls, is on November 7 to 8 at Peace University. We're looking for volunteers to help out, technical, non-technical. If you're really good at evangelizing, we also take that as well. So please reach out afterwards. We have volunteers signing this there too. And come talk to us after on any ideas you want to contribute, or we're also looking for ideas in 2016 that's careers related. So you say, hey Victoria, I'm really interested in this topic. We'll take that in, try to find speakers and hosts, and we can make that happen. So without further ado, I'll pass the mic to Eric to talk about New York Tech Council.
Thank you. So with the New York Technology Council, we're delighted to be co-hosting this event tonight. We're also a nonprofit. We focus on education, events like this, panel discussions with speakers, community building, events events like this one, workforce development, events like this one, and advocacy. We tell the mayor what to do, we tell Congress what to do, they say they're listening, but we'll see. We put on over 40 events a year, we run a CEO roundtable, and we are a membership organization, and sponsors are important because they help pay our bills. This is a list of our sponsors. I wrote those in your program. I won't read them, obviously. I want to give a special thanks to Squarespace for this great meeting space. And there was a chart that listed the speakers, but I don't see that here, but they're all in your program. And so with this, I'd like to turn over to Helen Reeves. Helen is with the law firm of Frankfurt Kernet. They are one of our sponsors. Helen is a frequent panelist at many of our events, and delighted that she's listening tonight. So, here's Helen.
Sarah.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Glad I got the response back. Okay, so my name's Helen Reeves. I'm an attorney in the corporate practice at Frankfurt Kernet Klein & Sells. I primarily work with startups. So I'm curious some feedback.
Adam, turn it over. Turn the mic on.
I don't know if it's out.
That went away, right?
Nope.
No, you're still hearing it? So primarily the work I do is with startups and entrepreneurs who are forming their businesses, hiring, making initial hires with a founding team, and also in financing. So this is a topic that is very near and dear to me as a woman, as a woman of color, and just as a person who practices in this space and works very closely with startups and people that are looking to work at startups. So let's talk about what this panel is not. This is not a panel on diversity and technology. There have been many, many panels on that topic, even though it's obviously relevant to what we're talking about today. The purpose of this panel is to really talk about talent and recruitment and career development for female engineers and developers. So a lot of the questions that we're going to talk about today are going to be geared towards learning what it really means to be an engineer, how to negotiate and navigate the recruiting and the interview process, and the cultural dynamics of working as an engineer as well. So with that, I want to let our wonderful panelists introduce themselves. Adam, do you want to start, and then we'll go around?
Sure, my name is Adam Krieger. I'm lucky enough to be the Director of Product Engineering at a company called Greenhouse. For those of you that know us, we are a recruitment software company. We make you awesome at hiring, which is obviously relevant to today's discussion. Greenhouse is very fast growing, which comes with its own challenges. So I'm interested to hear what the panel have to say about how to create a diverse group of engineers and maintain a culture and sustain growth.
Can you guys see me? Should I stand so you know my face first? Yes. I'm Kelly. I work at Microsoft. I'm a university recruiter. I was a developer at a couple of startups before that, and I was a history major with a CS minor, so I'm a firm believer in you can make a career in tech no matter what you study in college. So I work primarily with university students, so anyone who's entering college or is within a year of graduating, but I have worked with folks who are in the industry as well, and I work a lot with our intern and full-time programs.
Hi everyone, I'm Lorraine Buchanek. I'm the Director of Talent Acquisition at AppNexus, which is a New York-based, New York-founded, former startup, now pretty big company. I've been at AppNexus for about 4 years, and during that time we grew the company from about 150 to just shy of 1,100, so done lots of hiring, and I made a transition from financial services into tech, so happy to talk about that as well.
Hello again. So I work on a variety of things here at Squarespace. I work within university hiring, so I do the branding for our university hiring as well as our internal diversity initiatives. And I also do community initiatives like this. Previously, I was a developer and a CTO at a small health, fitness, and wellness startup based here in New York. And I also co-founded a nonprofit called Career NYC, very similar mission to Chick-Tech's, but kind of like, I guess, Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts for kids, to just introduce them into STEM, so a bit younger. So I'm really excited to talk more about how to get into technology, and especially as a woman and as a minority.
Great, thank you guys. So let's open it up with a very basic question. And the question, I'll try and frame it a little bit, but the general question that I want to open up with is, what are companies looking for when they hire engineers? What are the one or two key kind of characteristics, qualities, skills that companies are looking for when they say, we're looking for to place an engineer at our company? And maybe, Lorraine, if you want to kick the question off.
Sure. So I think there's really two main buckets or three main buckets that we look for. One is sort of tech skills, and some roles, particularly in engineering, have a really specific requirement as technology that you might need to be familiar with. I'd say that's the least important thing, but for some roles it is sort of a must-have in order to be considered for the position. Then we look at intrinsics, and I think that's definitely the most important portion of what we look for. So everything from sharing our values of learning and teaching, being intellectually curious, being the type of engineer who isn't happy with status quo but really wants to dig in and get to the root cause of problems, who's constantly trying to be creative and innovative in the way that they do their job day to day, and who's extremely collaborative. We have teams that are high performing because we hire folks that are really humble, love the work that they do, and want to work with people who share those values. And then the last thing actually does come down to values. So if you don't share our values of learning and teaching, wanting to see and improve the whole system, empower our customers and make greatness happen, it's sort of a non-starter. So the last two are definitely the most important, because we firmly believe that if you have the right intrinsics, we'll be able to teach and develop you into whatever skills you might have for the role.
I'll just tack on a little because I think Maureen covered a lot of what all of us were going to say. But I get a lot of questions on specific technical, what do we look for in engineers that we hire? And I can't speak for everyone here, but I think most companies don't have like a specific language you need. It's more so, language agnostic in the interview process, and then you can learn whatever specific, whatever language you need for the job. One language is one language, teach yourself another. So just adding on to that, you don't have to freak out if you're like, oh my god, I don't know Java, what's gonna happen, that's gonna stop in C. You're probably fine. If you're smart enough to learn Java, you can also learn C.
Something that I think we've been seeing a lot in a lot of university applications that I think is really important. Here are some tips specifically to put on your resume. On your resume, you might know a variety of different languages. Emphasize the ones that you are strongest in. So definitely, if you're writing any previous experience or projects, write in the bullet points which languages they are. So don't just say, built an app that does this or that. Say, built an app in this language or in this programming language. Even if it's just a project or an internship, make sure that you mention it. This way people, when they're looking at your resume, they go, oh, you have specific experience in something like that. And like you're saying, maybe it could relate to something else that you might be more interested in later on. But being honest and open up front about which languages, this way people can easily distinguish that on your resume, I think is super important.
It's interesting because one of the things that Lorraine kind of touched on is being able to collaborate with others. And I think, particularly in technology, there's this theory that everyone's kind of at their desk, working on their own little assignment, using their technical skills. How important do you think kind of teamwork and being able to work with others, collaborate, communicate with others is in particularly in the engineering space?
I've always been a social engineer. I used to call myself a social engineer with software skills. I think at a startup, it's super important to have a team that gets on with each other. One of the qualities we look for in engineers is empathy. Engineers and empathy are not two words we often hear together. I've seen numerous times that social problems tear apart a team well before technical problems do. And in a small company, that if you have a team of great engineers that can't work well together, you're going to have a bad time. You know, I think as you get larger, your hiring criteria do change. But I think for a startup like Greenhouse, it's super important to have engineers that can collaborate and socialize. Just recently, there was a rumor going around in our office that we were going to get cubicles, and the engineering team freaked out. Which I was like, wow, this is a great company. I love this place.
It's funny you mentioned the cubicles, because I was actually going to say, if you walk around any startup or tech company in New York, most of them are set up with completely open space, and I think that that's because most companies in our space truly believe in this notion of collaborating with one another, and not just within engineering, but cross-functionally too, right? Being able to meet with a salesperson or a product person and really understand what they're hearing from clients makes you a better technical member of the team. So I think that's why most of our spaces are set up that way.
Yeah, social skills and being able to collaborate with others is super important. It's definitely, I think when it comes down to like hiring somebody, if you had to choose between two people, you know, somebody whose coding skills aren't as strong as somebody else's, if they are a better people person and you know that they're just more willing to learn, more often than not, people are going to hire somebody who's more willing to learn and is open to collaborate, because especially when companies are scaling so fast, Squarespace included, you need people who can work well together. To give you an idea of like just fast growth in general, Squarespace, while I've been here for almost 2 years, about a year and 8 months, 10 months, whatever, has gone from 250 employees to 500. And we'll probably get to 800 by the end of like next year or something. So in order to scale engineering teams, you need people who can work together well.
Actually, to piggyback off of that, a lot of people think about really just kind of the startup hiring. If you're going out and interviewing at several different, startups or maybe more mature companies for an engineering role, is there a difference in terms of what you can expect, or what they're looking for really from you, or is it all the same?
Okay, I'll take this one because I'm Microsoft. So I did work at a startup, and I also helped with recruiting in that space, and I'll just speak from my own experiences. Microsoft and I'd say any of the other big 5 tech companies have fairly similar processes in place for recruiting. So, it's like you apply online, you get really scared because you don't hear anything back, and you're like, oh no, I've not been hired yet. But because of the high volume that large companies work at, it really is, for me, I can tell you because of my job, I have to go through every single, not have to, but I go through every single resume that comes into our system. And obviously, with having that extra human, touch, it takes a little bit longer to hear back from big companies at times, but if it's something that you're really passionate about, you should try to meet an engineer, you should try to meet recruiters. And I think that works for startups as well, just getting face time with the company and really showing that you're committed. Startups tend to be a little bit quicker in the recruiting process. They'll open up jobs when they need it, and that could be at any time of the year, versus the big 5 companies tend to have more of a rhythm. I've been recruiting for interns since August, even though it's for next year, and full-time hires, the offers are out already. So that's just on the recruiting side. I don't know if I went rogue on that.
No.
Okay.
No.
I'll take it because I'm Greenhouse. I think if you were to apply to Greenhouse, well, the kind of things we look for, let's talk about earlier stage startups. I've worked with very small startups, like 2 to 3 people, and at that stage, you're really looking for experience, especially if you've got a non-technical founder. They need someone to come on board who is trusted hands. It's very tempting with these people to hire more junior, less experienced people, but they're really doing everyone a disservice in that situation. So, I think a good CEO will hire an experienced first technical, the first engineer will be experienced. After that, it really depends on that engineer's skills. Maybe they are a great technical manager, and they can take on a couple of more less experienced people, grow their careers. Maybe not. Often these people aren't great first managers. Great managers, management is something that comes with maturity. When you get to apply to a company like Greenhouse, we're pretty clear what we're looking for. We're looking for senior people who have that experience, who have the skill sets. We're also looking for the more entry-level positions that can, people come with fresh ideas, a fresh perspective. They're looking to learn. They appreciate the fact that we're only 3 years old, yet we have a really established career ladder. People know where they can go and how they can grow their careers within the company. But for us, I'm really impressed when people come and they know the space, and they know the domain, and they know why the applicant tracking system industry, so glamorous, is so hot right now. And they can talk with passion about it. And they often say to us, like, I applied for 5 companies, every single one I use Greenhouse, so maybe I should apply to you guys. And I think that's nice to hear.
So I guess we've been taking this question really from your perspective, interviewing and considering applicants. What are the kinds of things, if you were an applicant, you should be maybe asking or looking for in that engineer position? I mean, you pointed out who's going to be managing you and their experience level and kind of what their style is. To the extent that you can get a sense for it, what kind of questions should you ask in an interview to get a better sense of the company?
I'll answer one. I think one of the best questions I've had recently. I had it today actually. A candidate asked me, in 3 months' time, what will I be working on? And it was a great question. I had to think about it. I actually took a look at our current JIRA board and sort of gave examples of the kind of things that an associate level engineer would be working on. And I think it gave a good sense. And obviously you don't just describe what 3 months looks like, you describe what week 1 looks like what month 1, month 3, month 6 and onwards. And I think that is a telling question. If someone just doesn't have the answer to that question, or kind of answers it in a monosyllabic way, then it's probably worth thinking, like, right, I'm perhaps a bit more junior engineer, what's my career going to look like here? How am I going to do this? How am I going to be grown?
Mine isn't as wise, but it's probably the most interesting question I've been asked by applicants, and I think it really makes you stand out. But it is like a very honest one, so if you don't have a thick skin, don't ask it. It's, what reservations do you have about hiring me right now? And it puts the hiring manager like on the spot. And if it's one of those interview models like Microsoft where you have multiple interviews in a row, it actually can be very telling for you in your next interviews on what to focus on. So if they say something like, well, I'm concerned about the way that you communicated blah, then you know that you can be more clear and concise in your next interviews. So that's a helpful one just for you on the applicant side, more like trying to perform well in an interview.
I think a good question to ask might be, how will I be evaluated? How will you measure my success again through onboarding at the 3 months mark and at the 6 months mark? Because you get as much information on how thoughtful your potential manager is as how structured the company's performance management system is. And generally that's a sign of how mature they are as an organization, particularly when it comes to sort of HR type stuff. So it might be that if they have a really structured process, your skin crawls because you actually want to work at a startup and you're trying to get away from that kind of environment. Or if you're looking for sort of an intermediate, maybe you're transitioning from a big company to a small company and you want a company that has enough structure that you'll feel like you'll be given feedback throughout your performance, that might be the right answer. But generally asking companies how they will assess your success is a great indicator of both the person you're speaking to and also how mature they are as an organization.
So there's a huge emphasis on culture and making sure that you find a position as an engineer and quite frankly in any employment situation that fits, that you fit the culture and that the culture of the place you're joining fits you. So what questions should someone who's going into an interview asked to assess the company's kind of general culture, whether it's work-life balance or other qualities?
I personally I think work-life balance is a huge indicator of for some people, if you're really interested in the startup grind and you really want to push out products really fast and learn a lot on the go, then smaller startups might be a really good place for you. Versus sort of more like medium-sized companies like Squarespace. So Squarespace is actually 10 years old, and we have a really good work-life balance where we work hard, but we also aren't stressed out about deadlines. We're more focused on putting out good products when we feel that they're ready, which I think is a really important part of our culture, is that we are not tied to external factors for like getting things released. We're not caving to market pressures. We're really putting out things that we're proud of. So for us, that means like a work-life balance. It means, hosting other events like this, doing things outside of like the workplace. So we have a soccer league that we do on Sundays that people are welcome to join. A lot of like other outdoor, a lot of other extracurricular kind of activities that are always nice to have and are optional. We have like a family and friends day, and we have a whole separate team that's focused on, employee happiness, essentially. So I'm part of a subdivision within our team that's called People Team. It's called the People Team because we have an experienced team that helps put together events, that helps put together, gift baskets for when any employees like having a child. So things like that are really important, and smaller details that are kind of nice if you're looking into bigger companies, especially.
I don't think that there's a specific question as much as ask the question, tell me a little bit about your culture, and then ask for proof points, right? Like, I think it's when you're a candidate, you sometimes feel like you're being assessed, so you can only ask one question, you can't ask more. But if someone says our culture is, we believe in learn and teach, for instance, I've never had a candidate turn around and say, interesting, so how do you live that value? How does it manifest itself in your culture? And I have so many examples that I'd love to share with people in that setting. So don't feel like you only have to ask one question. Ask the question simply and just follow up. And I think you'll get some great examples like the ones that you just mentioned of what that culture is really like.
I think one thing to add is no matter what question you ask it to everyone you meet from the company. It's very easy for one person to have a particularly smooth, slick response. With a smooth result. I think if you essentially cross-examine them and compare their answers, you'll get a much more truthful picture.
And then maybe even just drilling in on the engineering focus for a bit. Do you think that engineering teams have a different culture, or does your engineering team have a different culture than the overall culture of the company? Or is that a question that I think is fair to ask in a meeting? What is the culture of this particular team?
I think so, definitely. At Greenhouse, I think the engineering team has a similar culture to the rest of the company for sure. I think we're very careful about who we hire to make sure that sticks and stays true. But as you get, I know for large companies, your experience at the company is based entirely on what team you join. So it's very, very important to ask about a team's particular culture. For sure. If anyone else has any thoughts?
So this is something I definitely experienced while I was a developer at a nonprofit and while working at smaller startups. Sometimes places, I think you might not notice this until you work at different places, but some places do treat engineering differently, how they treat design differently, and they might have a culture where it's one department over another calling the shots, whether that's business or whether that's design, or in some cases engineering. I think Squarespace has had a really good balance between good design and engineering, and it's one of the few places I've worked at where neither one is calling the shots, and they're really working together to really like make the best decisions for the company together and work together really well. Some team, I think the divide has gotten isn't as existing as I've seen in other companies. So really look for a place that values each department equally, I think, and isn't as focused on like making decisions solely off of the business of the company or just off of design, but like holistically together, like working to make good products or good services.
To push that a little bit more, what kinds of questions or how can you scrape that surface? How do you get to that? I know that's a very difficult, specific thing to ask, but I'm just thinking about these guys going out and interviewing and wanting to get a sense of how the culture fits in for that particular team.
Just really quickly, ask what the process looks like for developing products, for coming up with services, how those decisions are made. If they say something like, oh yeah, well, business like looks at the numbers and makes those decisions. Not to say that business and data isn't important. We have a data science team here at Squarespace, and they help across the organization. But I think being able to again, look at everything holistically and hear how the different teams work together, I think is super important.
I was going to say exactly that. I think asking how teams work together, and particularly how product and engineering work together, or engineering and design work together, will give you a good sense of whether or not there's different cultures. But I did want to add, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, right? Like what you want is for the same standards in terms of hiring quality to be applied across the organization, whether you're hiring an engineer or a recruiter. But I think if you bring your true self to work and you have a culture that promotes everyone to bringing their differences, it can be really cool to have different pockets of the same culture manifesting itself slightly differently across the organization. So I'm pretty sure that our engineering team does not have a bachelor recap on Tuesday mornings, but I can tell you that my team does and really enjoy it, and that's okay, right? I mean, it's not for everyone, but I think that promoting that can be really actually very healthy. Sorry if anyone hates The Bachelor. I know it's a very controversial topic.
I don't know if it specifically answers it, but I always think it's cool if you have the opportunity to speak with a new hire. So someone who's within like the first 6 months at the company, and then someone who's more like middle of career. So they've been there for a few years, or however long you measure in startup years. And then, someone who's a manager who hopefully you are speaking with, who has been there long enough and sees things from like a bigger picture. I think that's always helpful because sometimes I think if you've been at a company for long enough, you forget the things that you take for granted. And a new hire's like, oh my God, like the toilet seats are heated. That's amazing. So, things like that.
I think that's a really good point. I think when I was, this is in engineering, but in law, when I was interviewing, I made sure for every interview to speak to like a first year associate and then to talk to a more senior person, just to get a sense of kind of, because even how you experience the culture in a place may be different depending on how junior or senior you are, so it's really exciting. So let's move to career development and talk a little bit about that. Are there any skills that you think are like mandatory to be a successful engineer?
Yeah, I think the ability to break apart a problem into smaller sub-problems and solve them is probably the biggest skill. I think anyone can get overwhelmed by trying to tackle a huge problem. I think if you have the ability to really examine that coolly, calmly, break it down, to be disciplined, tear them off, solve them one by one, you'll do much, much better.
I feel like the most important thing is the ability to communicate. So communicating that you cannot solve a problem is just as important as being, I am able to solve this and solve it better than how we are solving it. I think like communicating and being able to say like, this is what I worked on for the past 6 months and this is why it's significant. It just cuts across all layers of being an engineer, and I've seen so many ridiculously smart people who are just less successful because they're not able to just break it down. Like, you've had a professor who's just like a genius and you're like, I have no idea what he just said. That kind of applies to being an engineer too. If you worked on something and no one can really understand the impact of that, you're kind of at square one again.
Yeah, totally agree with those. And then I would just add ability to kind of collaborate in solving problems. I think that's really, really important. The majority of the time, you're not going to be the person who can crack it on your own. And so being able to bring out the best in your teammates and engage in kind of troubleshooting together is really important.
I guess lastly, I would add being able to constantly learn is a really big skill. So being able to, doesn't mean you have to be the best, but it's the willingness to learn new programming languages and realize that, when you're looking at a job description, I think the best advice I've heard is to see the bullet points as a wish list and not all as requirements, because it can be super intimidating that way. To see it more as like, all right, I'm really good at these 2 or 3 things, and just be straightforward and honest in the interview and be like, I don't know these as well, but I'm really passionate and totally willing to learn more.
So on the scary things, say that you are not that good of a coder. If your coding skills are not really up to snuff. Is that something that you think disqualifies you? I mean, this is obviously a red herring. Does that disqualify you from a job as an engineer, or what can you do to supplement that if it's a concern?
I think it's important to be upfront about what you, to your point earlier, what you do know, what you feel really comfortable talking about and explaining, and what you don't. But more important, the language you may or may not know, or how strong your coding skills are. I think what our interviewers really look for is an ability to get up at the whiteboard and talk through what you're having a hard time understanding, what you ask a clarifying question, kind of work through the problem with them. You shouldn't feel like you're the one who is to have all the answers. Really, we want to see the types of questions that you're asking, what more information you need to actually get to the bottom of the problem. We don't expect folks to get the answer right away. We care more about the approach than the result a lot of the times.
So I would say that a lot of folks underestimate their skills, like their programming skills, when they come into an interview. I don't know about everyone else's companies here, but I know that technical interviews are just studyable. Like, if you just studied for them as you did for any normal course, like if you check out like Cracking the Coding interview or like Programming Interviews Exposed, and you just like put 6 months into that, you will nail every single like technical interview out there. So it's not really a question of how good or bad of a coder you are sometimes. Sometimes it's just knowing the context of the questions that you're going to be getting, and then being able to actually answer them instead of being like, this is the first time I've ever heard a question like that. So obviously I'm not going to answer that as well as someone who's done the research beforehand. So I'd say don't discount your coding skills, but definitely make sure that you're preparing and not going in cold to an interview.
I think interviewing is a skill in itself and requires practice, honestly. I think if you look at a job description and you think, I don't have 2 to 3 years of OO experience, I can never apply for this job, like that's your first mistake. Always apply for the job. You never know what's going to happen. Sometimes you can find yourself in an interview room with someone that makes you feel really comfortable and you perform at your best and you nail it. Other times, you might be out of practice. It happens to everyone throughout their career. It's not just a graduate thing. I think what's interesting, I said to a candidate today, is like, hey, whatever you do, you won't be able to prepare for our interview. Cracking a coding interview won't help. So, Greenhouse does pride itself in having an interview process that isn't something you can really study for. It really tries to test your, it does 2 things. It tries to make our candidates feel at ease, and also tries to test your ability to do the job that we're actually interviewing you for. Which may not scale so well, but certainly works for us. But definitely, always apply, always practice interviewing.
How about our QA program?
Sorry?
How about our QA program?
We have a, thanks, assistant over here, thank you very much. We have a great program, it's just the subject of a blog post actually on the Greenhouse blog, that takes in Dev Bootcamp graduates and people from different backgrounds. Maybe they didn't come out of a prestigious CS school, and it's been exceptional. These people provide, from day one, for a year, provide a lot of value at Greenhouse, and when they graduate from the program, they become an associate software engineer. They work on real product problems immediately, and some of the best engineers at Greenhouse have come out of that program, so it's pretty awesome.
To add on to the point of how interviewing is a really good skill, I was just at this really wonderful Women in Tech conference called Grace Hopper, Celebration of Women in Computing. It was an amazing event, so if any of you were there. But if you weren't, how many, because I know there's a good amount of women in the room, how many of you have heard of Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In? Okay. So Sheryl Sandberg was at the conference, and one of the amazing examples that she gave was women starting, young women, especially in college age, starting these Lean In circles, and basically small groups of women getting together and talking. It didn't have to be within computer science, it could be within business, whatever majors, but women getting together and talking about professional life and development. One of the examples she gave was that a small group of women, they had all, gotten together and said, these are our top tech, internships that they each wanted to get. They practiced their interviews together. They practiced technical interviewing with each other. And they all got their top tech internships, and that is something I wish I had known was available to me, or that I could have started while I was in college, because I don't think I had that support network to be able to even just make, with friends or colleagues, practice technical interviewing or interviewing in general. So I think that's a really great thing to check out.
So you get the job, you're an engineer, maybe you're entry level at a startup, or maybe you're at a larger company. How do you know you're growing and developing, and how do you know when it might be time for a change to leave that position and try something new?
Okay, I'll go. Okay. I've had several jobs, and I think I can try and think back to when. So, I think you should always be learning. A key indicator that it might be time to move on, if you feel like you're the smartest person in the room. It might feel great for a few weeks, but trust me, it's not a good thing. I think if you ever feel that the organization has stopped supporting you, that's a good time to move on. I think that before moving on, always talk to your manager. You should ideally be in an organization that wants to retain you and wants to hear about your problems, your issues. In many organizations, and I've made this probably mistake a couple of times as well, you go to leave, you have your exit interview, your manager is like, whoa, what's going on? And they'll say, well, this, and you give 3 things, and like, we could have fixed that. That would be that's easy, and at that point the ship has sailed and you've already committed to leaving. So yeah, if you've given your feedback to your manager, your manager's manager, the CEO, someone of influence, and that feedback has fallen on deaf ears, you've not seen any change, then it might be time to move on.
So from a slightly the other side of the coin, I think you should always be looking at new opportunities, and sometimes there's no I'm miserable and it's time to move. It's sometimes you come to events like this, you have a conversation with someone, you really, really become interested in something that they're offering, and you just want to go out and maybe it's the recruiter in me, but you want to see what's out there, right? It's good it makes you feel good that you're wanted in another space, in another role, at another company. And for me, I've been at 3 or 4 different companies now, and I've kept positive relationships with everyone, and it's not that you leave out of it's a bad situation. It's more this is a cool new opportunity for me. I've always wanted to try my hand at recruiting, so here I am. Or I've always wanted to try my hand at mobile development, and so here I am. So I would say just having just leaving the door open to hear what's out there is good.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I would use that as an opportunity to sort of have conversations with your manager about things that you're maybe not getting in your role. So rather than, sort of I go to these events all the time. I totally agree. Exploration is so important. But come back to your team and say, I went to this event and it piqued my interest about X, and the reason why I'm interested in it is Y. How can we make that a part of my job? Because I think most companies will want to retain their top talent, and if you have a manager with whom you can be really open, you should take advantage of that opportunity whenever possible. But in general, I think the learning piece is really the main one. If you feel like either you're not learning as much as you were, or maybe the company's not growing quite as fast, give it a bit of time. But if you just don't see the opportunities growing with your skill set, then it's probably a good idea to move on.
I agree with everything. I think just to tack on to the end of that, there's a statistic I read recently, which was if you stay at the same company within tech for 2 to 3 years, your salary is 50% less than what you could be earning if you had switched to a different company. Just as an interesting statistic. Not to say that you have to leave a company. If you're, of course, happy at the company and you feel supported, then that is super valuable. But it's definitely, the mindset has shifted. I know that for my parents, this is a scary thought that I've stayed at companies for a year or so, because in my parents' generation, you know, their idea of success is staying at a company for 10, 20 years until you retire. So I know for parents, at least, that can be like a scary concept to get over.
And Rebecca, I'm so happy that you brought up compensation, because that was the last section. Perfect segue. So let's talk dollars. When you see the salary posting, or maybe there isn't a posting, how do you ask about salary if it's not something that's readily obvious? And if it is obvious, how negotiable is salary when it comes to engineering positions?
This is not my favorite topic.
We were all
Just
very
jump in.
hesitant.
Yeah, to be clear, no one wanted to take this question when we prepped for this. So I think in general, it's important for you to be really upfront when you talk to a recruiter, particularly if you were passive and you've been sourced, about what you're currently making and what it would take for you to move. And I think that second piece is really important. Most of the time you'll be benchmarked against what you're currently making, but you should be explicit. Listen, I'm really happy in this role, I'm learning and doing really interesting things. It's good. It would require a bump of 15 or 20% for me to consider even having a conversation. So be explicit about that up front so that you can level set and manage expectations. You likely won't hear what your actual offer numbers would be until you get all the way through the end of the process. So the more transparent, and basically you sharing that information up front means that the recruiter can prep that for you on the end of the process. So I think that, you know, in terms of getting benchmarks, look at Glassdoor. It's actually a pretty good resource. I hate that candidates look at it, but it's there. And on principle, you should always negotiate your offer. Always, always, always. Even if you get the offer, an offer that's, you know, $10,000 more than the best number you had in your head, ask for a little bit more. Not in like a jerk way, but just say, is this really your best offer? Are there, is there something else that you could do? Because generally, if the recruiter you're talking to is a good recruiter, they didn't give you the full offer. They kept some because they expected you to negotiate. So.
I'll talk about it a little more from like a new grad position. I'll say for most internships, it's probably not really negotiable. Like most internship offers are fairly standard. You might be able to budge a little bit, like for relocation, something like that. But don't expect as much as you can in the full-time space. It's like game on. Like come in there, like do your research, look at Glassdoor, talk to friends who have interviewed there, talk to friends who got offers there or at like similar competing companies. Oftentimes, you'll be able to negotiate several portions of the offer, right? It'll be either the salary, it'll either be a signing bonus, or if there's not one, adding one. Stock in some way, shape, or form, relocation in some way, shape, or form. Obviously, like if you live in New York City and you're like, I don't know, gonna move to somewhere in New York City, sometimes relocation, it'll be a little bit different. And then the last thing that you can sometimes negotiate at certain companies, it's other little things, right? Like vacation days or something like that. So always go in, know where your wiggle room is, like expect a number, and then be able to like be comfortable in going up with a big smile, being like, I'm super excited about this offer. I'm a little bit concerned about X, Y, or Z. I was wondering if it's possible for us to negotiate there at all, or I was hoping for 10K more in this space, and then just having that, being comfortable with them, like saying, okay, I'm gonna go back and see what we can do, come back and have that negotiation. And it's, I think the most important thing when you do it is to not be like super sour or spoiled about anything, because you do have to realize at some point the manager who's signing this check, like you might be working with. So you don't want to come off as like a giant spoiled brat and be like, I want $1 million and I want to be CEO and I want this, and this. So you do want to be somewhat reasonable and like, hey, this person will be signing my performance review in a year. So let's stay on good terms.
One thing on that, if you're a student, don't involve your parents in the offer negotiation. You would be shocked how often that happens. I've had parents' lawyers on the phone walking me through all the different things in the covenants agreement, and we still hire them, great members of the AppNexus community, but it just kind of like, you're an adult, and so you should negotiate your offer on your own. And then just one caveat to what I said about negotiating your offer, you always should, but also ask about the comp structure, right? Because a company like AppNexus doesn't have the means, we're not public yet, to compete with Facebook, for example, when it comes to compensation. So talk about all the other intrinsics, and don't just look at the number on the offer, look at everything you're getting out of the experience, which could be more responsibility early on, owning a bigger part of the product, having more vacation days, whatever it may be. Really look at the package holistically, including the potential upside of options.
That's really valid point. Another thing is that nothing helps the negotiation process like another offer. I would advise never go for one job at a time, always go for multiple jobs. And I know you're super experienced. If you're experienced and you get an email, you get prospected from out of the blue, and you start the process with one company, that's it. Floodgates are open. Start the process with 5 companies. Be pretty transparent throughout the entire recruitment process of what's happening. 2 reasons. One, it shows transparency, it shows integrity, which is good for you. Secondly, kind of creates a bit of a scarcity feeling, which will drive your value up. So when it comes to negotiating your final offer, you'll have a much easier time if there are other offers on the table. And just don't be a spoiled brat.
So this was actually touched on, I think Lorraine touched on it, the package and kind of what's in it, salary, bonus, options. And I know several people asked me to talk a little bit about kind of stock options and what they are, equity grants, what they are, what's the difference, how do I figure out the packages, what makes the most sense. So I'm going to give a little short, brief legal break. Think of this as a footnote in a very interesting book that you probably skip over, and then I'll turn it back to the panel. So when someone says they're going to issue you or give you incentive equity compensation, the first thing to ask is, am I getting an outright grant of equity in the company, or am I getting an option to purchase equity in the future? And those are 2 very, very important distinctions, because in one instance you become an owner of the business right away, and there are tax implications to that. In the other instance, you have the right at some later date, provided that you provide certain services, to get that equity. And as another footnote to the footnote, usually all of your stock option grants and your outright equity grants will be subject to what's called vesting. And a vesting arrangement will essentially say, for a period of time, you've been granted, let's say, 1,000 shares in this company, but they are subject to a 4-year vesting period. And the most common vesting arrangement will be a 4-year vesting with a 1-year put. All that means is a quarter of the equity that's been granted to you will vest after the first year. So if you leave before the first year, you don't get anything. And the reason that they have that cliff is to ensure that if things don't work out in that first year, they don't have someone who now has equity in the company who has left. So after after that first year, you invest into a full quarter, year-long portion of that equity, and the remaining 75% will vest monthly over 3 years. And typically it'll be a similar arrangement for options as well. So you're getting an outright equity grant, or you're getting an option grant. With options, there are really 2 flavors of options. So there are non-qualified options and there are qualified options. Non-qualified options are options that essentially, they don't meet, I won't get into all the details, but they don't meet the statutory requirements of being a qualified option. And when you're granted a non-qualified option, there are tax implications to you. So I know this is flagrant, self-promotion, but talk to a lawyer and get an offer for options. Because when you exercise when you're first granted a non-qualified option, there's no tax impact to you. When you exercise the option, you actually pay the strike price and receive the equity. The difference between the value of the equity that you're receiving and what you pay is income to you. So if you join the company very early and the company is at, $1 a share, and that's the strike price that's set in your agreement, and then you vest after 4 years and you exercise, and at that point it's $10 a share, that $9 difference is income to you because you've gotten the value of $10 a share, but you've only paid $1 for it. So that's something that you want to be aware of from the beginning, and that's another way to kind of evaluate when you're getting options, or these qualified options or these non-qualified options. Qualified options have to meet some additional statutory requirements, and the reason being is that there are tax advantages to receiving qualified options over non-qualified options. One of them being that you don't have this, what I just described, that income issue. There is alternative minimum tax issues, which is another, our smarty pants over there has some legal knowledge about that. I was going to share that.
I'm the smarty pants.
On AMT, yeah, on path.
Yeah, so I think I can talk about AMT. AMT is like, oh man. I think you truly become an adult when you start saying things and then follow them up with, and that has tax implications.
Yeah.
But when AMT is when you earn a certain amount, but the US government deems that you're not paying enough tax, which is painful. And it's especially painful with stock options. So the stock options that have tax advantages, also called incentive stock options, or ISOs. Many engineering stock option plans are ISOs. You do not necessarily pay tax when you exercise them. So that example with $9 difference, $9 income, you wouldn't pay tax on that unless you qualify for AMT, in which case you are taxed on that. Be careful, there's always tax implications to this stuff. It's pretty well known that if you're in a company and you join when it's $1, it's a rocket ship after 4 years, you're thinking, oh great, I've got my 4 years, I can leave now. When you leave the company, your 90-day limit kicks in. You've got to exercise your options within 90 days, or you leave them, or you lose them. You also have to figure out a way to pay that alternative minimum tax on those options, which could run into the tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars at that point in time. So you find that people are trapped, they can't leave, they have to wait for an IPO or an acquisition, which gives their stock options some real value. So you're saying, right, okay, sure, I'm going to incur $60,000 in tax, but I'm actually going to get $300,000 of real money, so who cares about 60K? But if you exercise them before that IPO or acquisition, although the government thinks you just made $60,000, you can't do anything with that money, so you're kind of stuck a bit. So just be really careful. It's not like
I think that was a great summary of and this all kind of comes back to.
Let's say, please do consult a tax lawyer or accountant. We're not taking any of that at face value.
I didn't have to say it, he said it again. So this all goes back to the package, right? So you're presented with an offer, there's a salary number, there's a bonus number, maybe there's even incentive options or non-qualified options, or you've kind of assessed it. So to turn it back to the panel, how do you assess kind of the full package? Are you thinking about value of the company? Are you thinking about what are the things that you should be considering?
That's a great question. Before diving into that, I just wanted to tack on to the end of salary negotiations. Something that I wish I had known when negotiating salary in the early stages is when they ask you, oh, have you thought about compensation, or basically how much you want to be paid? They always say like you're not supposed to give the first answer. So if you're looking to stand your ground and not give like a number because you might lowball yourself, which I definitely did, starting out, is say something like, well, I believe I should be earning industry standard. So if you've done your research on like Glassdoor or something, you can shoot for the higher numbers if you end up like feeling like you need to give a number. But saying something like that will definitely let you stand your ground. But in terms of looking at the whole package when you're looking at a company, I don't know if this is a practice within other companies, but at Squarespace we do, when we do give offer letters, we also share like, you know, all the other benefits and how much they would be worth like per employee. So for example, entertainment. So like when we have these outings, we have other things, we kind of have that number mixed with also, you know, how much we have for catered lunch every day. So we have like organic, like healthy catered lunch or takeout lunch mixed in during the week. So how much is that per person? And then that becomes a dollar amount that's also in your package. So it will say something like, oh, this is how much, you know, your equity could be worth. This is how much salary you have. This is how much these other benefits are worth. And then, you know, what does the vacation policy look like too? So at startups or like medium-sized companies, you might have, you know, a more generous like vacation package. One study actually says though, at places that say unlimited vacation, people take less vacation than when they know how many vacation days they have available. So if you do join a startup, make sure you're taking your vacation days and don't feel guilty taking like 2 weeks because most people don't end up using their vacation time.
I just think that was super comprehensive, actually. I think the only other thing I'd tack on is if you are looking at positions in other cities, looking at the cost of living in those cities, looking at state income tax policies, or sales, whatever specific type of tax policy the state has. That makes a huge impact. Like when I moved to New York from Washington, took a huge pay cut because Washington doesn't have state income tax. So things like that, right? Like maybe the number on paper looks lower than it would in like San Francisco, but then when you compare the numbers like at the end of the year when you're doing your taxes, it winds up that you would come out ahead with that, lower salary or whatever.
Not to mention city taxes.
Yeah.
Thanks, New York. I think another thing to talk about in terms of total like the package is how do you weigh up options. Very great trepidation. Do not get wowed by a big number, for many reasons. The most primary one is that most options are and will forever be worthless. They just are there's only really two situations where I would actually put value on options before when considering a compensation package. Number one is when the company is probably Series B or Series C. That means there's a decent trajectory. There's a lot of investors who have been willing and interested in putting money into that company. And the second is when the founders have had, at least one of the founders has had sort of a 10 million or 100 million plus exit. Those people have access to a lot more money than first-time founders do. That relieves all the pressure. The chances of success are much, much higher. So in those situations, then start thinking about equity, but otherwise, when it's a small startup, really just focus on how much money are you getting in a month, is that enough to live on for the next 6 months, next year? Am I going to be regretting this decision?
The only thing I'll add is sometimes when you're applying for a startup, you're like, I'm applying for a startup, I can sacrifice everything for this experience. Like, you should still get paid well, even if you're working at a startup. Like, don't give up everything for equity for the potential of something at some point in the future. And make sure you're comfortable with the compensation they're offering you.
You may not get access to it, but it's worth asking, kind of, if it's not online, what their last deal was, their last financing deal, because that'll at least give you an idea of the valuation of the company. That gives you some window into what it might be worth. Also, don't be wowed to average panic buying numbers because you don't know what the denominator is. So, I've got 200,000 shares, and that I can get from the exercise of these options, well, you don't know what the denominator is, you don't know what that represents in the total capitalization of the company. So I've had a lot of people come in that are very excited about all these options they've gotten, and then when I ask as the lawyer for the cap table, you see it and it's like 0.02% or something for a company, which, as Adam pointed out, may very well be worthless in the first place. So you just want to be thoughtful, talk to a tax or accountant or somebody, lawyer or somebody about options.
And just to give an idea of that denominator, many is not uncommon for companies when they get acquired or go public for there to be hundreds of millions of shares, right? So you've got 5,000 shares, so options 5,000, that's a lot. But it's just a small drop in the ocean of equity. So do your math. And if you ask someone, hey, what is the denominator? What's the number of fully diluted shares outstanding? If you get an answer, that's great. You might be a bit disappointed by it. If you don't get an answer, that's a bit of a warning sign. It's only a warning sign though if the person hiring is trying to sell you on equity. If they're saying, hey, here's this great salary and here's a few options, and they're being cagey about the sort of the number of shares outstanding, fully diluted shares outstanding, that's okay because they're it's not an equity play, you're in it for the salary. But if you're in it for the equity and don't know what that number is, then I'd walk away because it's a big problem.
Okay, well, I want to make sure there's time for, unless there's anything else you guys want to say, I want to open it up now for questions.
Ask a question about heated toilet seats.
Heated toilet seats?
That was...
So I have a microphone that we can toss. So don't mind. So I'll hand over here first. I think I saw your hand. I'm sorry. So if you hold it to your face, it doesn't work. Yep. Yeah.
Okay, so if I'm offered equity and a base salary, can I negotiate and ask just for a base salary and not take equity if I want to be more conservative? Have any of you seen that experience, or is that a really dumb move?
Can I take that? That is not a dumb move. That's a very smart thing. To trade off equity against salary is, quite frankly, it's the way that companies should make offers. Really, I think the best way a company should make offer is to give a framework for which would allow the candidate to negotiate an offer within. You want to tailor the terms of the offer to match where you are in life and what you're after. If you've got a lot of commitments, if you've got a family, a mortgage, and you really want to guarantee income, guarantee quotes, then trade off options for a higher salary if you can, for sure. And likewise, if you're not risk averse and you want to gamble, do the opposite.
So I have a slightly different perspective on that. I think it might send the wrong message that you're not, because part of why a lot of companies get options is so that every member of their team feels like they're part owner of the company. So I wouldn't say don't give me any options, just give me the comp, but find some balance to say maybe I can take some of the options away to have more compensation.
Definitely.
So my question is to everyone sitting down. Are all you guys experienced in coding? So does everyone know what language?
I started off as a self-taught developer. I started coding when I was about 12, and I did not study computer science. I studied business management, and I have done full stack, so I've done front end, back end, servers, and then I've transitioned into my role as a developer evangelist, which means I utilize my technical knowledge along with communication skills. So essentially, I'm technical PR is how I like to describe it.
I am not at all a coder, but I learned everything about it from my engineers.
I started in IT, did Python, and do Java, C++.
I have programmed. I do program. I've been doing this for many years. I've pretty much programmed in every language except for Haskell. If you don't know what that is, go look it up and then quickly close the browser. But right now I'm learning to program people, which is way harder. Much harder.
She did it. Yeah, go for it.
Try last time. So, I have a question about asking about paternity leave and maternity leave and when to bring that up in the interview process. I've been looking at some jobs and job descriptions and there's no mention of that in Australia, so I kind of know what the laws are back home, but not so sure about what's happening here, so any advice on that would be great.
So this is something that we recently have been looking at within Squarespace, and we recently also changed our policy to include an even longer paternity leave, or especially change it so if there's whoever is the primary caregiver has an extended leave, but I would say it wouldn't be the first thing that you bring up, but definitely once you're talking deeper within the job description, probably within the second interview or so, to say I'd really like, or if they ask you, do you have any other questions, you can be like, well, I'd really like to talk more, I'd like to hear more about your benefits. And you could say, I noticed that I didn't see anything about say paternity leave or maternity leave or anything like that, and just casually bring it up that way, I think is the best way. That's just my opinion. I know that there are women I have spoken to where that is something they're looking for in a company that they join, is the potential to grow within a company. So bigger companies now are also taking that into consideration and having childcare options or nursing rooms for mothers and things like that. And so the company is definitely making strides to add those things into their culture. That is probably a place that you want to work at that is there to support women. And just as a quick statistic, I think it's more often they've found that it's not that women aren't entering the current STEM pipeline, it's that they're not staying, and the issue is childcare and women feeling that they have to give up their potential growth in order to have a family. So it's definitely something really important that I hope more companies take into consideration.
Totally agree, and I think good idea to maybe ask the recruiter that question. Generally, they'll be more familiar with the benefits package, and most companies that have great maternity and paternity leave plans love talking about it. We do too, because we just revamped it. We're really proud of what we're doing. So never feel shy about asking that questions, but framing it in the context of your overall benefits and asking the recruiter, I think you'll get a better answer. Sometimes people that don't have children or haven't taken advantage of that benefit just won't be as familiar with the fact that we give you $1,000 when you have a baby to help with some of the costs of having a baby at home.
So just to give a father's perspective, I actually joined Greenhouse, not only, but one of the reasons was because I established an interview process that they really support families. It's a small company, but they even have a parent Slack channel where everyone posts their cute pictures of their babies. It's really cute, it's actually fine. I think it's important to get a sense of whether the company supports families, not just women. I think that part of the problem we face is that women feel like they're the default parents essentially, and I think the company has to realise that men have a great parenting role these days as well. They require the flexibility. They require the paternity leave, even expressing things like primary caregiver, secondary caregiver. It might be a situation where in a relationship, the person who gives birth to the child is not the person who's going to look after the child for the first 6 months of his life, or 3 months, or however long. So I think, ask the question, if someone gives you a really cagey response and backs away from it, again, it's a bit of a sign that it may not be a supportive place for families.
To piggyback on that, how do you feel, or what are you seeing in terms of people coming back into the workforce around 35, 40, and being willing to start at a much lower, entry-level job, but they're doing it against 20-year-olds. Are you seeing that, or are you encouraging that? And how do you feel about that? Or what should they look at?
So you see, so it sounds like being pit against a 20-year-old might be a bad thing.
No, but if it's sort of like with women in STEM. If you walk into a company and you don't see women, and you're a woman, it's a little intimidating. If you don't see anyone over the age of 35, it's a little intimidating if you're 40.
Yeah, I so absolutely agree. I think that's going to be you, but like I think the common thing, the way I look at it is if someone comes with like being a parent gives you so many important skills. Like it teaches you patience. It's I think you see the world in a different perspective. I think as a parent, you're time constrained. Guess what? Time constraints make you prioritize better. Guess what? Effectively prioritizing is a great trait for a manager or leader to have. I think those are all issues you just mentioned. As a hiring manager, I welcome anyone coming in back into the industry after a break. I haven't seen it, right now, Greenhouse, we're a small company, it's just a case of like numbers that isn't something we've come across yet. There's no reason why we would factor against someone, certainly in my mind. I know how we structure our interview process, and it wouldn't really be a problem. I don't know if anyone with larger companies can tell their opinion.
So I just came back from the LinkedIn conference in California, and they have this really cool thing called a returnship, which is specifically geared towards a member of the workforce that left for either family reason or health reason or whatever it may be. It took a break. It could be 1 year, it could be 5 years, it could be 10 years. And I think that that's really the next great untapped pool of talent. It's one of the topics that was discussed extensively. So the fact that LinkedIn, which is a major company, is investing so much into that program is awesome, and I think they're definitely on the forefront on that particular subset of candidates, but it's something we're always looking at and very interested in.
Just to tag on to that, I've definitely seen it more for people coming or going into coding boot camps, especially. And I think that in terms of hiring, yeah, it definitely is not something that is like counted against anybody. It's more of like, oh yeah, by the way, that 10-year gap, I was, raising my children kind of thing. So, yeah. Anyway.
Can you speak a bit about people that are entering new, whether it's a career transition or someone that just graduated, in terms of the resume? 'Cause obviously there's not a lot of work experience that's related to put on there. So how many projects on a resume is okay? What's the limit, and what else maybe can you do?
If you don't have the current work experience, I definitely recommend having code samples. So have GitHub and have code samples, whether that's side projects that you did, contribute to open source projects. And if you don't have any ideas on what you want to build or you're sort of stuck, come help out a nonprofit. There's plenty of nonprofits who are looking for people to have them help code. So if you go to codemontage.org, I believe it is, or codemontage.com, you'll find a list of nonprofits who are looking for people to contribute to their projects. So having that code online will make you stand out versus somebody who just lists a bunch of like, oh, I did this or did this, and it's like, but I can't see your work. And it might even make you stand out more against somebody who has had internships and they can't share their proprietary code. Might help you in that sense too. So I definitely recommend that. It's a big thing.
Totally agree. I think it's also good to just add maybe at the top of your resume that you're making a career transition, and you don't have to go into a full paragraph, but just highlight it so that when the recruiter or the hiring manager is looking at it, they understand the gap. Most companies, I hate to say, don't really read cover letters anymore. So I would just put it at the top of your resume, and then also in your LinkedIn profile, make that really explicitly clear, because that's usually where recruiters are going to look for you.
Hey, I've got two things. One, the shameless plug for Greenhouse. I'm Lena Sargolino engineer for hiring. There are Black women engineers there, so you should join. Let me know if you want to talk about it. Also, in terms of finding
salary bands for a lot of startups here in New York or wherever you're looking. And also have some of them are very upfront with equity information, so you can know how many options or what percentage of the company they may potentially be offered. And so now for an actual question, I'm just wondering if you guys could just one word, like what's the best single piece of career advice you've been given, or you've learned, or you can disseminate to us?
My favorite quote from an author I really like is, "Don't compare your beginning to somebody else's middle." And I think that applies to code, your career. It's really easy, especially now that code is open source and online. You can be like, I haven't written that much code, or I don't code that well, and it's really easy to get caught up in, looking up to other people.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I thought we were doing literally one word, and I was like, oh my god. I think the most valuable thing I've learned really is to just listen. Listening, like in the interview, you learn that interviewers are giving you hints the entire time. Listening in with your manager, you're learning exactly what their values are and how you can perform well. Like listening to other people who work with you, you just collaborate better. And I think everyone's just very eager to talk a lot when they get nervous or they're trying to impress, and sometimes it's just more valuable to be the person who's listening and actually absorbing that and taking action on it.
I think advice on disseminate is that the only overnight success is a good night's sleep. Which is hard to come by sometimes.
All right, thank you guys. We're going to adjourn on that. Stay and network, and panelists will be here for more questions. So.